All right, we are here in London with the great Nigel Farage. Nigel, thank you so much, and congratulations on the massive win.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, for those in America that don't know what happened, we were supposed to leave the EU on March the 29th. It was written into law. You know, we had a referendum. It was all set. Guess what happened? We didn't leave on March the 29th. The government effectively kicked the can down the road, and that meant we had to contest the 5-yearly European elections.
Well, and in America, you are, I have to say, you are a cultural icon, because you give so much confidence actually to Trump voters that the polls could be wrong. And I'm going to tell you, Nigel, you played a role in getting Donald Trump elected. Now, that's not foreign interference in elections, everybody, because that's like a big thing. But what you did is you showed the voters in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan still show up to the polls show up to vote because the polls could be wrong.
Yeah, well, so what happened to us? On the day of the referendum, at 11 a.m. that morning, a poll was released showing Remain 10 points ahead.
A suppressive poll.
And the message, absolutely, the message was, if you're a Brexit voter, don't bother to go and vote because you've lost anyway. Guess what? That poll was an absolute political stitch-up. And the man who released the poll is now in the House of Lords.
Wow.
He's actually been honoured for what he did. And so when I went to Mississippi and spoke at a Trump rally in August 16, and then when I went back, you know, week after week, I kept going back and doing stuff on everything from Fox to CNN, you name it. I kept saying to people, don't listen to what the polls say. Don't listen to what the predictors say. You know, they're using this as part of their political means of stopping you voting.
Well, and instead of having the polls actually report reality, they're trying to make the polls create something.
Absolutely.
They're now used as political devices and weapons.
It's dishonest in the most extraordinary way. And remember, on the morning of the 8th of November 16, you know, I think it was a couple of the New York newspapers, based newspapers, said there was a 98.1% probability that Trump would lose.
Well, and I remember being in Trump Tower with Donald Trump Jr. looking at the New York Times forecast meter. So it's, for those of you that can't see the video that I'm doing, essentially it's this 180-degree meter, and it had 99.9% chance of Hillary Clinton winning. And then it just ticked all the way back throughout the night, of course. But Nigel, I believe that we're going through a time in Western civilization where the elites are making their big power grab. And they're almost annoyed that people like you are giving voice to the middle class workers again.
I think annoyed would be something of an understatement, to be honest with you.
But they're terrified too. They're bothered by it.
Yeah. Well, they've had it all their own way for a very long time.
Yes.
You know, they set up an international apparatus post 1945, which actually was with good intention. You know, a world ravaged by war. Let's have a set of institutions through which we can cooperate and work together. Everything through, you know, the United Nations,
World Trade Organization,
NATO, the European project, all of these things. And actually, you know, 40, 50 years ago, in a way, you'd have been mad to oppose these organizations. Because what's wrong with us sitting around the table, talking, trading, all of those things? But, as ever, with humankind, behind it there was an ulterior motive.
Of course.
Yet another attempt to try and create one world government. And I know it sounds conspiratorial to some people, but it isn't. Look at what's happened in Europe. You've now got 28 countries signed up to an organization that is now run by unelected bureaucrats.
Yes.
And if Hillary had won back in 16, she was utterly committed to America becoming an extension of the European single market.
And you look at 3 or 4 instances of this. The Paris Climate Accord was supposed to be an entree to destroy American national sovereignty. The World Trade Organization, TPP, NAFTA, all these were deliberate attempts from an American standpoint to do exactly what the European
free trade's fine. Yeah, having a free trade deal where you get rid of tariff and quota is fine.
Bilaterally, sure.
Absolutely. But when you start to look, as you say, TPP and these kind of arrangements, they're basically political unions.
And these I make the argument, we have not had free trade, we have China trade over the last 60 years. We've had trade that heavily favors the Chinese markets, where they still are allowed to be classified as a developing nation, where they can steal intellectual property of the best entrepreneurs of the West. They can lie, cheat, and steal, and we're still supposed to act as if they're...
And they can mass produce steel.
Well, they dump steel.
Mass produce steel and dump it all over the Western world.
Yes.
And we close our steel works down as a result. So there are some real problems with China.
No doubt. And so as I see what's happening, you know, in the West and what you're leading, Nigel, is so fundamentally important. So the argument that you made is that the elitists will say, well, failure to do this will mean that we'll be more likely to go to war and we'll be more likely to have conflict. And that's such a horrible argument, because I could actually say their current model it's inevitable for a crash course, a collision course, where you have
well, if you take away from people their ability to influence their own future,
yes,
because that's what democracy is.
Of course,
democracy is about making choices about your future. If that's taken away and transferred up to a supranational level, if you want change and you can't get change through the ballot box, what are you left with?
You will have separatists.
You're left with direct action, you're left with all sorts of things. So
mobs, violence, horrible things.
I'm genuinely worried that if you take away people's freedoms, they will fight back. And so what I want to do is I want to fight back,
yes,
but to beat them at their own game and to beat them democratically.
Which is extra, and thank God we still have that opportunity. And you and I had this conversation before, which is far too often conservatives, I'll say conservatives in the States, not the conservatives here, which are practically...
Oh, no, we haven't got any.
They're practically Democrats.
No, there are no conservatives
here.
The Conservative Party's almost been a bit abolished.
And we'll get there in a second. It's a joke here. I mean, I look at these policies, your conservatives are advocating for gender wage pay gap nonsense and Islamophobia, hate speech suppression. Yeah. I'm just looking at this stuff. I say, okay, we have it a little bit better in the States, where we have actual rock-ribbed conservatives in the traditional sense.
Yeah.
But one thing that Donald Trump really focused on, I think he learned from you, Nigel, I have to say, and I think he got a lot of confidence from you when he saw what Brexit happened. He said, I can win too, is you have to focus on the culture. It's not just the economics. And I'm a supply side guy, I'm a free market guy, I believe all those things.
Yeah.
But those arguments, they don't have a lot of resonance to people.
Well, I'm old enough, of course, to have seen supply-side reform,
yes,
in Reagan's time, in Thatcher's time, and to see, men and women going out, setting up their own businesses and really succeeding. Huge. I mean, the 80s was a great period of social mobility. As you say, at the moment, that debate isn't really happening. People don't quite get that debate. But this is what's interesting. We have seen Brexit. We've seen Trump. We've seen Italian politics, transform.
That's a wonderful thing, right?
In the most astonishing way. We now have a whole series of new political movements springing up right across the Western world. And here's the interesting thing. It's all happened at a time of relatively benign economics.
Isn't that amazing?
So normally you would expect a recession followed by a depression, and that's when you get new political movements.
Exactly right.
Some might be good, some might be sinister. This has all happened at a time of benign economics, and it is cultural. It is cultural, and in many countries, it's actually the mentality of the capital. So we've got London. Here we are in SW1. This is where mainstream media is. This is where career politics is. Mm-hmm. You drive 50 miles north of here, you find completely different people, completely different attitudes. And I get the feeling in America it's the same with the
It's exactly right.
And that's what you've got. You've got the dominance of these capitals, more and more power coming into capitals, going away from ordinary people, a widening divide where the rich are getting richer, and those who actually were doing quite well 20 years ago are now struggling.
Yes.
In this country, their kids can't even afford to buy houses.
Well, it's out of control. Immigration in this country too is pricing people out.
Well, we have we have a population crisis in Britain, and nobody
You're adding 300,000 people a year in London, and you already have 10 million, is that right? In London proper, yeah.
And we wonder why the property market's through the roof. We wonder why the traffic on our roads is as intolerable as it is. We wonder why
crime is increasing in certain areas.
Crime is increasing, but I think there are slightly different reasons for that. Frankly, we've got Sadiq Khan in London, and you a few years ago had Rudy Giuliani in New York, and the contrast between the two is astonishing. So we've got some real problems here, but our biggest problem is that our population is now rising by over 500,000 a year, and we do not have the infrastructure as a nation to cope with it. 80% of that population rise is directly down to an immigration policy that's simply out of control.
Well, and I'll say the theme that you highlighted is exactly right, where Middle America, as we call it, or the heartland, is getting boxed out by Malibu and Manhattan, the coastal elitist urban cities. One of the things that America has that the UK doesn't is we have the Electoral College, which still gives a good voice to those kind of states and that kind of flyover country. Thank you to our founding fathers to have that kind of system, or else it would just be complete mobocracy. And so to transition to your point is that there is no conservative party in this country. There isn't. And so I have to ask about this just from an American standpoint. What are we supposed to make of all the Boris Johnson, essentially inevitability? Let's put it that way. That he's
Boris,
essentially the prime minister heir apparent.
Boris
right?
is going to win. Look, Boris is lively, entertaining, fun, makes people smile. They're all good things. But if you ask me, what does Boris Johnson really believe in his heart? I'd struggle to answer.
Yeah.
I'd struggle to answer. I mean, he's actually a very metropolitan liberal figure in many ways. However, Boris did one very important thing. He came out for the Brexit side in the referendum. Now, no one knew whether he would. There was big speculation as to what he would do. He came out for the Brexit side and he helped. He really genuinely helped. So he's now nailed on as a Brexiteer. We're going to have a Brexiteer Prime Minister on July 22nd. The question is, unless he really believes in it with his heart and soul, is he going to be able to deliver it? Because he is going to have to face down Parliament, which is still a very globalist Remain Parliament. And I mean this. I want Boris to succeed. I want Boris to succeed because I want this country free of the shackles of this appalling bureaucracy in Brussels. I want to re-engage more deeply with the United States of America and many of our other friends around the world. And I hope Boris does it. But if you ask me straight, are we going to leave on the 31st of October, which is the new big deadline that we've got? I don't think so.
Well, so if I could give advice from America, learning from the kind of populist movement of Trump, not to you, but generally, number one, you have to hold him accountable the minute he takes office, and you know that, and to frame the debate. And number two, I think Boris, if he wants to pull off Brexit, he has to do a bilateral agreement with America within the first 30 days. He achieves a bilateral agreement with the United States. He can use that as a leverage point against the European Union.
Of course, absolutely. I mean, that is so obvious to so many people.
Of course.
And yet, for the last 3 years, we've done precious little. You know, when your president was over a few weeks ago for his state visit, which, by the way, went phenomenal.
And he did great.
It was phenomenal.
And he loves you, by the way. The president loves you.
We get on pretty well, yeah.
No, because you're a real guy. You're not one of the aristocrats.
Well, no. I mean, I hope not. Gosh, but he's no. But what was interesting about talking to him when he was over is, you know, we've got an American president who really does have a huge admiration and respect for the British people.
No doubt.
It's real. You know, Obama, of course, didn't come to this country. He always flew straight to Berlin because he saw Germany as being the new dominant force in this new European state. But I got the impression that America actually, as far as this bilateral is concerned, that already a huge amount of work has been done. You know, Bob Lighthizer and the guys are ready to do this. And yet, on our side of the pond, we've hardly started.
Yes.
It's pathetic.
Yes.
So Boris can turn all this around, but he's got to have the vision, he's got to have the belief.
Yeah, it's so funny, you hit it perfectly. The entire European experiment was supposed to decentralize power, control, and wealth away from Germany. It's done the exact opposite.
It's done the complete opposite.
It's made Germany the power center of the entire continent.
Yes, I mean, when the big banking crisis came in 2008, and huge tensions within the Eurozone, because kind of the north and south of Europe being in the same economic and monetary union is pretty much impossible. And that was when Germany came to the fore. And it's interesting, before 2008, nobody ever said to me that it's a German-dominated Europe. Since 2008, no one suggested to me that it's not. Yeah, and that was the moment, in a sense, when Germany took control of the whole thing.
So playing out your experiment, you don't think we're going to exit on the 31st?
I hope I'm wrong, but I don't believe we will. And that is why what I'm doing with the Brexit Party, which we launched on the 12th of April, so we're still very new, and unbelievably,
it's amazing. We'll talk about your success, just for Americans that don't know.
So I launched the party on the 12th of April because I'd been involved with the Brexit campaign, I'd led UKIP, I'd forced the referendum on Cameron, I'd helped to win the referendum, and to be frank with you, I thought my job in politics was done. You know, I came into politics, I didn't come into this for a career, I came into this because I wanted to turn this country round. I wanted us to get our independence back, our freedom back, our democracy back. I thought I'd won. But I found I hadn't, so I launched this new party called the Brexit Party. We won the European elections. We got 50% more votes than the nearest party. Do you know, we got double the number of votes in that election of the Conservatives and Labour added together.
And so just for the American listeners, it's a very different system. There's the MPs, the members of parliament, which
Yes.
are they directly report to the specific parts of the 4 member countries of the UK, and they will work on domestic
Yes.
issues and international, of course. But then there's the MEPs, correct?
Members of the European Parliament.
And so they meet in Strasbourg. Is that right?
Yeah, once a month they meet together in Strasbourg, and this is a parliament for all 28 member states of the European
Got it.
Union.
And what's decided there? Just
Virtually everything.
well, that's so.
Virtually everything. I mean, look, when it comes to everything from environmental policy,
Yes.
through employment protection
Seriously.
policy, through what fish we can catch, none of it's decided in Westminster. What you're looking at in
Is
Westminster
a super government.
You're
Well, I mean,
looking at-
in Strasbourg.
You're
Yeah.
looking at this beautiful building in Westminster, this wonderful palace of Westminster. It's frankly a museum.
Wow.
Because the big decisions are all taken in the European institutions, and that is the extent to which we've given away and transferred our sovereignty. That is what I want to get back. So your listeners may pick up on one strange irony, that even though I want to leave the European Union, I'm going back.
No, that's what I love about it. Is that
I'm going back there. And amazingly, we are now the biggest party from the whole of Europe. My group is the biggest party in the whole
Wow.
of Europe, and we have our grand opening.
well, do they have like a do they elect a figurehead for each country in Strasbourg?
No,
or?
they don't. They will elect a chairman of the whole parliament, which is nearly always a German, of course.
Go figure.
Well, just the way it is. So the 2nd of July is when the grand opening of this new parliament is. So I'm going to walk in there with 20,
That's extraordinary.
28 other men and women.
Well,
and
we
that's
we
fantastic.
might. Yeah.
But I will, I didn't just set the party up to fight the European election. I set this party up not just to get us out of the European Union, but to completely reform British politics. We've got some wonderful history and traditions, but you have to drag things into the 21st century.
Yes.
I mean, take for example, we've got a House of Lords. Now it's all very grand, and they wear their robes and all the rest of it, but they have never been voted for. They can't be removed, and it's actually time we had something like an elected Senate. So I'm there for genuine.
What a concept!
I'm there for genuine constitutional change and reform in this country. But
Wow.
and here it is. We've now had 4 opinion polls in a row, asking people how they will vote in the next general election.
When is that? It can happen any time, right?
It could happen this
It's a
autumn.
snap election,
It
or
could happen
yeah.
any time. In 4 polls in a row, my party is in the lead.
Well, then you could be prime minister.
I mean, it seems extraordinary. So the lesson from this is very clear. Boris Johnson, I could be his best friend and ally or his deadliest enemy. It all depends what route Boris takes. And I promise you, if Boris takes the right route,
I love that.
If Boris takes the right route, I will put 100%
Well,
support behind him.
and if I could just give some advice to Boris, if he's listening to this, we'll make sure he sees it. I'll put it on Twitter. If you begin your prime ministership, is that the right way to put it?
Yeah.
Trying to appease the left, you will fail. Do what is right, act with courage and conviction, and then you'll be successful. Because if he goes and he just tries to appease labor and tries to appease essentially the Democrats who call themselves conservatives, sorry, I'm using American language.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then he will assuredly fail. People want direction right now.
Yeah, and if he does that, of course, he will then put himself politically in direct conflict with me. Now, if he wants a fight, I'll give him one. But
No, I'm saying no.
But I really wouldn't recommend it.
But you have the energy right now. You have the spirit.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and increasingly, people in the country are seeing that the Brexit Party are offering positive solutions.
Yes.
And that's what they want. We've had enough of all this backbiting, had enough of 3 years of indecision. We want to get on with this, deliver Brexit,
Without a doubt.
and get on with the rest of our lives.
For the skeptics that are listening to this, Brexit should be looked at as this amazing opportunity, not as a burden. You guys will become the financial capital again of the Western Hemisphere minus America, easily. Because if people will know that there are not the EU ties and bureaucracy here, capital will flow here. You have amazing institutions, incredible intellectual capital. If there's a choice between Britain or Berlin, people will choose Britain, because Berlin's still going to have the financial obligation of the other 27 countries.
That's so good, I might use it as a slogan.
You should. You should. It's good. Alliteration is always very good in politics. Britain or Berlin. People will choose Britain.
I like that.
No, it's really terrific. So let's, 2 more things I want to talk about. You're being so generous with your time. Thank you. First of which is, we just had a great event with Turning Point UK. And could you talk a minute just about how necessary you think that is important for the country and for the youth movement?
I've been to a couple of your events
Thank you.
in the USA, as you know, and when I was with you in DC in July last year, and I saw the energy and the optimism of those young people in the crowd. And also I realized that what you were doing in Turning Point was giving young people who've been hounded for having their opinions, you gave them a home where they could at least feel a bit safer. And I said to you, we've got a massive gap in this country. We have a thing here called the Young Conservatives. They're a complete waste of time, full of geeks, just pointless. And I said to you, I really think you should come and set up TPU.
And I executed on it.
And you've done it. And I
Yes.
think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
And I think you're going to grow very, very quickly. And I was very pleased to be there at that dinner last night. And I want to say this, I will help you.
Thank you.
I'm right behind what you're trying to do. I will help you.
Well, and if we look at labor, their feeding ground is immigrants that are being fear-mongered towards and colleges and universities, if we're honest with ourselves.
Yes, I mean, we certainly see that in London particularly. But what Labour have going for them as well is virtually an entire educational establishment.
That's correct.
That is teaching them this stuff, and Jeremy Corbyn's a hero, and that's why 2 out of 3 young people voted Corbyn in the last general election. We've got to do something about that, and that's where TPUK's got a big role.
Well, and you look at the similarities between Labour and the American Democrat Party. The American Democrat Party had their base stolen from them by Donald Trump. Hardworking class voters that steel mill workers, coal miners.
Kind of sound a bit like my voters too.
Think about it. Taxi cab drivers.
Yeah.
You know, people that
Hard work,
the middle class.
Yeah.
The Reagan Democrats, as they call it.
Yeah.
Right? And Thatcher was also able to captivate these people as well. And where the Republicans and where the conservatives here in this country will always fail is if they look at things always through a technocratic lens. Oh, we need more corporate tax cuts. Look, I love corporate tax cuts. Great. Okay, I can make an argument for them.
But,
however, there's a huge but. There's a huge but. That does not resonate with taxi cab drivers.
No.
And you also have to give them policy too. And look, I'm a free trade guy. I believe in all that. But I'm also not a pro-China guy. I mean, what we have done in the West is we just think, well, let's destroy our steel industry because we'll get 20% less on steel.
you see, the reason we're not having this debate, and we talked about this earlier about supply side and small,
Which is fine.
medium-sized enterprises, is what's happened to our politics in the last few decades is we have now got corporatism.
Yes.
We don't have capitalism,
No.
we have corporatism, where a handful of multinational
That's right.
companies control the world and own the political process.
Well, and if I were to describe corporatism to the audience to build off of that, both the center right and the center left want about 500 approved companies that all donate to their campaigns, where their spouses sit on the board of directors of, that pay for their vacations, and those are the ones that the policies are written for, those 500 companies. And they'll employ a somewhat substantial level of people collectively. They're still not a majority of the enterprise base of what the country could be. And that's where the disconnect really is.
Yeah. I mean, we're much smaller than America, but we've got 5.4 million people in this country who are running their own businesses,
that are entrepreneurs and
acting as sole traders, and many of them, of course, in new technology. They're individual people doing computer programming or whatever. They're very much part of the modern economy. And there's literally nobody sitting on the front governmental benches in Westminster that's ever run a business that has any understanding of these people.
Sounds
and
familiar.
regulation is crushing these people.
Yes.
And once we can break away from the European Union, we're then away from the corporates making all of our laws, and we can start to give these people half a chance.
So the final thing I'll talk about is this, Nigel, is you've done such a great job. You deserve full credit of preventing Labour from getting more power in this country, because Labour could have captivated and held on hostage some of the supporters that you have. Easy.
Yes, I mean, funny enough, the 2015 general election, when I was still leading UKIP, and there was no question that the votes we got, the millions of votes we got, we hurt Labour much more.
That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely.
And so when is the next election?
Well, I would say this to you. It's not supposed to be until 2022, but...
Geez, that's a full time.
But I would put it 50%. It'll come this autumn.
Wow.
And if Boris is brave, he'll
call an election, or
he will say, we are leaving on the 31st of October. I will not listen to all the negativity. The House of Commons will refuse. He will then say, well, if you won't support me, let's see if the British people will support me. And if he does it, he'll be a hero.
And he doesn't need to win 50+%, correct?
No, given the way the system is, anything over 40%, he would get a majority.
Wow.
He'd get a majority. And actually, do you know something? If he was allied with the Brexit Party, we'd win it by a landslide.
And so here's the question I always say is, what would Winston Churchill do in this situation? he would easily call that snap election.
Well, absolutely.
And he would say, we're leaving.
I mean, Churchill got things wrong in his life, as he got things right in his life. And it's worth reflecting on this. After Dunkirk, we've got the British Army back.
Sure.
We've left behind our tanks. We've left behind our artillery. We are virtually defenceless. Mm-hmm. We have a few aeroplanes, but we're virtually defenceless. And Churchill goes into that cabinet meeting after Dunkirk. And the logical thing to do was to do a deal with Hitler, just as the French had done. And there were many senior figures in British politics, including our Foreign Secretary at the time, who were keen to do a deal with Hitler. And Churchill said at that cabinet meeting, there is no surrender, there is no going back.
It's amazing.
We will defend this country. And then he said to them, to the cabinet, every one of whom had served in France in the First World War, every one of whom had seen death on a scale that we can't even imagine. And he said to them, we will defend our island even if we all have to die choking in our own blood. And they all sort of looked at Churchill, they were quiet for a second, and then they stood and they cheered. Now, we're not facing life and death here, literally, sure. But what we are facing is whether we are going to reclaim our rightful place in the world.
Yes.
As a free, independent nation who countries like you respect.
Yes.
Or whether we're going to give up and frankly become an outer province of this European monstrosity. Mm. So it's not life and death, but it is about the future of our nation. It's a crucial moment.
Absolutely. Well, Nigel, you're a hero. Any way we Americans can help you, I mean, I can't wait to see what happens. And if I were to predict, I'm kind of in the prediction business. I hope I'm wrong. Boris is going to kowtow to the left, because if he is who you say he is, he's a metropolitan liberal, then I know the way these people act. He's going to get invited to the parties. He's getting invited to the media coronations. And he will then try to hedge on Brexit, which will then only further increase your support. He will not call a snap election, and he'll have some sort of abbreviated deal on the 31st, which will further anger the base and anger the people that voted for Brexit, and it won't end well for him. I hope I'm wrong, but this is the way that things always work. And if I look at him, I see a weak-kneed Republican from the States. I know the type of guy. Now, I could be wrong. Again, he seems like a nice enough person. I don't want to insult him and all the.
No. Well, I'm just going.
I'm going on the data you're giving me. That's it, right? Look, and these people act in patterns.
I feel exactly the same way.
And because the technocratic advisors are going to say, "Oh, we can come up with some sort of deal," and well, hold on, we've been doing that for 3 years. The only way this ends is your party getting more support and more enthusiasm. So don't stop.
I won't.
Thank you, Nigel. Appreciate it very much. Thanks.